From an agent perspective, one of the things that I always talk about with them is having a diverse book of business, because we've seen
Yeah.
through this downturn where we've had agents that were they're great people and they're still great agents, but they lose a lot of business because of that
Yeah.
pricing pressure that you mentioned, where they were killing it during COVID because maybe they're doing a food product and we were all
Yep.
home, or they were doing building products and we all rebuilt a gazebo or remodeled our kitchen or whatever it was, because we had all this time and we had
Yep.
excess money the government was giving us. Well, now those people their agencies have shrunk because those people aren't as busy.
Yeah.
So if you're building a book of business, diversify. Um, and it doesn't mean you have to be in different industries or different commodities. Just from a customer perspective,
Yeah.
don't have all your eggs in one basket. Even 80-90% is way too much.
Before we dive into today's episode, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Sales CRM. They are one of the only CRMs built specifically for freight brokers and freight agents. Not only can you manage your shipper sales prospecting, you can also manage your carriers and the lanes they run directly in the CRM. Check out sales-crm.com, and thanks again for the sponsorship. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to the ThinkFreight podcast, and thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Tommy Wardine. I'm excited to have a familiar face, Cale Pearson. He's the president of B2B Transportation Services. Welcome back to the pod, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, of course. The last time you were on, we were talking about freight guards, which are still always relevant, but definitely not the topic we're going to be talking about today. There's a lot of other stuff that I want to dive into. You're doing a lot of really interesting, content creation aspects for B2B. You guys have You guys have some agents. You guys have some other staff as well. So you guys are doing a lot of cool things in the space, and just wanted to kind of highlight what you guys are doing, and kind of get your take on some of what's happening in the space as well.
Yeah, love to. I'm happy to be here and share anything we can about B2B and the stuff we're doing.
So, what's new? So before we get into anything crazy, what's new? I see you guys have a lot of merch going around. I see you wearing a hat now. You want to shamelessly plug your the merch right now before we move forward?
Yeah, I'd love to. So it's camo, so you can't see it, but it's
Perfect.
broker dude. So our website is Freight Broker, or now I just forgot. Yeah, freightbrokerdude.com. The merch line is actually like Broker Dude, and then we have Broker Babe. There might be a couple items on there. We're getting ready to add them on Trucker Dude and Trucker Babe as well, so that we can hit both the brokers, the carriers, because at the end of the day, we wouldn't be here without trucks. So super excited about that. Just literally launched it, last month sometime, but getting it out there, super good quality. It's all drop ship, so it's super easy to order. Literally, like, you can do it on your phone, whatever. So I'm excited about it.
No, that's awesome. I saw some of the designs. I thought they were really cool. I might have to pick up some stuff here in the future, wear it on the pod. But yeah, dude, really cool that you guys have been doing that, and shout out to what you guys are doing there. If you guys, who are listening, didn't check out the episode where I had Cale on, we're diving into freight guards. We'll dive into a little bit of kind of Cale's background real quick, kind of how he got into the industry, kind of what drew you into kind of the business, and then we'll kind of dive into a little bit more to B2B.
Sounds great.
So why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got into the industry? I know you've been all over the industry from shipper to carrier to now to the broker side. So give us a little bit of your background, and then we'll dive into more about B2B.
Awesome, will do. Right out of college, or when I was actually in college, I signed up for all the interviews that we had, the Targets, the Enterprise, all those ones that hit every campus, for practice, really. And I remember I actually bombed one of the interviews with Pfizer because I couldn't remember anything except for, like Viagra. He's like, well, what drugs do you know? And I'm like, I didn't want to say it. So I was like, ah. So that's the worst I've ever done on an interview because I totally clammed up. But one of the jobs that was on there was for a local company called Elk Corporation at the time. and now it's GAF Roofing. They bought them out. They had a traffic coordinator position. I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. And they hired a couple people from, I went to Cal State Bakersfield. Roadrunners, if anybody was curious, there's Roadrunners in Bakersfield, so that was our mascot. Uh,
That's
but
cool.
interviewed there, felt like okay, this is a local-ish company. They had 4 or 5 plants, but I saw that I could be a good fit there. I grew up. My dad was in construction, built houses, so I was familiar with materials, construction materials.
Yeah.
Actually worked one summer during college at a pepper shed, driving a forklift, unloading trucks, reloading trucks, whether it was bell peppers, chili peppers, all that kind of stuff. So I was kind of like, okay, this feels familiar, and did the
Yeah.
interview, got the job as traffic coordinator there in Shafter, California. Quickly thereafter, maybe 6 or 7 months, our shipping manager was a reservist, got called up to Desert Storm. They asked
Wow.
me to fill in for both shipping and traffic, which I really enjoyed the shipping piece more because the traffic was contracts, rates, all the boring stuff.
Yeah.
But it was necessary and it taught me a lot about the industry, what was important in contracts. I mean, it
Mm.
was so boring though. I'll tell you, that part was so boring.
Yeah.
Um, but once I got into the shipping piece, that was fun because then I could be like negotiate with carriers, bring them on, find a good fit, those sorts of things, and lead and manage the team.
Yeah.
Did that for. He came back after about 6-ish months. I'm a huge supporter of our military, especially our reservists that give up their life to go fight for our freedom. So
Yeah.
obviously, that's their responsibility to keep that job. So I went back to being traffic coordinator, but I was bored again. Living in Bakersfield, California, Central Valley, my wife and I, pretty newly married. I just remember, like, I think we were on our honeymoon, and I was like, "Would you ever want to move?" And she's like, "Yes." So at that point, we just started looking, what's out there. She's a nurse; she can get a job anywhere,
Yeah.
especially, going back to 2003. It was harder to find a job. I mean, it
Yeah.
just, it's not as, there's not all the tools that we have today.
Mm.
Um, but one of the carriers that I had signed up, I really liked how they did business. I felt like they were progressive as far as wanting to grow. And I said, hey, how's Oregon? And he's like, why, you want to come visit? It's like, yeah. So I visited, pretty soon after got a job offer, went from the shipper side. I remember some of my carriers were like, "Oh, dude, you're making a huge mistake. You never want to go from the shipper side to the carrier side." And I'm like, "Why?" And they're like, "Oh, it's just hard, and it's all this and that." And I'm like, "Well, the job I had at L Corporation was a good job, but it wasn't going to go anywhere
Yeah.
because, a lot of times in those organizations, shipping is just kind of an afterthought. They
Mm.
they only care about you if you screw up, type thing. Why aren't
Oh
you getting
yeah.
this product delivered? That kind of thing. And we had done some really cool things in the short amount of time because the old guy, he was very like he didn't want to like add carriers on. He didn't want to like do same day shipping. And I was like, hey, if we have the product and we have an order, we ship it. Because we shipped from I think 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. We had
Yeah.
2 shifts. I think we had 6 guys running each shift, so we had a lot of capacity to load trucks. And we had a spring buy one year, and I remember we did 328 loads in one day that we loaded.
Wow.
And 90 minutes was the maximum wait time. So, so fast forward from that, went
How
to
many
trucking.
before you
Yep,
go to
yep.
how many doors did you guys have to accommodate that many loads in a day?
It was flatbed, so it was really,
Okay.
just out
Yeah,
in the
super
open.
easy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
so
know,
easy. Yeah, I mean
yeah,
not so easy, but that's a lot easier than having to have like a bunch of doors and things like that.
yeah. So with that, 12 pallets most of the time was what it kind of was. So,
Wow.
12, you could load them pretty fast. I mean, we had them lined up all through the yard. It was pretty cool to look out there. The
Oh
guys were
yeah.
all nervous about it, but I'm like, let's go, add them on, let's go. Uh, so did that, did a little bit of rail, not a ton. It was more just arranging the shipments. And then went to work for the flatbed company. I talked about this earlier on the show that we just did. And one of the impetuses for me for training is remembering how I felt when I started there was there's your desk, get to work. And it was
Mm,
like, okay, what do I do? Whatever I tell you. It's like, okay, cool. Tell me
yeah.
something, you
Yeah.
know? But I was bored out of my mind there. I don't like to be bored. I like to be busy.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember going to the main, like the CEO, the president of the company, and he's the guy that hired me. I'm like, I don't even know why you hired me. This guy won't give me anything to do. He's super protective of it. Um, I'm sitting here half the day surfing the internet. I think I got to the end of the internet in my first week there. It's like,
Oh yeah.
uh, so he's like, well, just figure out what needs to be done and do it. I was like, okay, cool. So I just started brokering freight because I had the old company that I worked for. I knew some other locations next to it that were nearby that I had visited, had relationships there, and so just started booking freight, and we either put it on our company trucks or we brokered it.
Mm,
So, so that was kind of obviously now. I mean, that was a 13-year career, almost 13 years there.
yeah.
So you want me to keep going?
Hey, as far as deep as you want to go, man.
All right.
I love
So,
it.
um, you know, I ended up being a shareholder of that company as well, and
Yeah.
then we ended up selling to Dasky organization, which they've been bought out now. I always get it wrong. It's a three-letter initial. It could be GFI. I could be wrong on that. But that was just this last year.
Yeah.
But we sold in 13. I stayed on until 16. One of the reasons I laughed is kids were of an age where, they're 17 and 19. So if you think back to 16, that was eight-ish years ago.
Yeah.
That age where I wanted to be a dad. Um, and I don't mind traveling for work. I enjoy it to a point.
Yeah.
But what I saw as we sold into this new organization, there's a lot of meetings that take place just for the sake of having a meeting,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and it's like the last thing I ever want to do is just waste my time. I don't want to travel
Yeah.
just to travel to go to a dog and pony show. I want to get stuff done. So ended up leaving there. In between that time, I did a leadership development franchise. I still own that. I have somebody that operates that now. So that also correlates to why I'm so huge on training.
Yeah.
I've seen the value of it, and truly great organizations are really good at that onboarding, that training process, continuously learning. Um, did that and was able to really like be a consultant in a lot of different organizations, manufacturing. One of the things I did, I was in a CPA office for probably about a year and a half working with them and also working with some of their clients, dental industry. Um, you know, a lot of times those smaller industries, they might be good at a trade. Let's
Yeah.
take dentistry, for example. They're good at it, but they're not business people.
Mm,
And at the end of the
yeah.
day, I'm just a business person. It's like I like the transportation sector because it's busy, it's active, it's always changing. So I remember going to help this dentist, and he owned the building. One of the things dentists do is the equipment's really expensive, right?
Yeah.
And you, they had half of it built out, and they're like, well, we want to build out the other half and expand our practice and bring in a partner and all this and that. So we get into looking at their financials. And I'm like, well, you have a loan on the building, you have a loan on this equipment, you had like three equipment loans
Mm,
and a mortgage, and they were all pretty bad loans. So I was like, okay, well, how much money do you need? So we ended up, I think we borrowed 300,000 and lowered their monthly payment by 10 grand.
wow.
Um, because they just had bad loans because they didn't
Yeah.
know any better. It's like, well, you need a loan, you just go get it. You just walk down the bank, and it's like, no, let's roll it all into your mortgage, spread it over 30 years,
Mm,
which you can then write off. You can write off equipment too, but so just things like that. And then fast forward into 2019 into that shareholder group for B2B Transportation, which I've been a shareholder since 2004 of, said, hey, we just need your help. We know what you can do. Um, and we'd had that conversation a couple times, but our office is in Medford. I live in Redmond, it's 3 hours away. I wasn't up to moving. Kids were in high school. They really enjoyed what they did or where they were at. I said, I'll help, but it's on my terms. So after coming to me 3 times, they finally said, fine, just help. And ended up starting in 2019 actually as an employee, more of just kind of like almost like a consultant role, but
Yeah.
an employee coming in, taking a look. Quickly saw the GM we had, good sales guy, just not a progressive in building the company. We needed to make a change there, so we did that right at the worst possible time, right during COVID.
Yeah.
Um, but there's never a good time, you know.
No.
Um, and then just the last 4.5, 5 years, really just been trying to grow the company. A lot of that was going through and building systems and processes. You know, getting rid of the bad decisions that were made from either a credit standpoint, or not doing business. I mean, it was like he just turned down a lot of good business because maybe it didn't fit his box.
Mm.
You know, and that's really frustrating for agents because it's like they have a great opportunity, but if we don't sign the contract, they can't do it.
Hmm.
So I always try to find a way to yes versus we can't do that.
No, I love that, and I want to dive into like how, what is at the high level, what is B2B transportation services, and how do you guys operate? You guys have an agent model, correct?
Yes, and employees. So at a high level, we're a freight broker. We have 35 freight agents. Within that, there's probably close to 50 people because a lot of times agents have a family member or
Yep.
a big enough agency to have employees. So about 50 there, about 25 employees. Most of them are based in Medford, but we also have some remote team members kind of around the U.S., various places. You know, either people I knew that moved, or employees that needed to move for personal reasons, or
Yeah.
just people that referred to us. So 25 employees, about half of that is support staff. I'd say the thing that sets us apart is I always look at all the decisions as somebody sitting in the chair moving freight
Mm.
because I've moved freight.
You've done it.
And I just remember the frustrations, even like going back to the hiring process. I hate when there's a better way to sit back and do nothing.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, so it's like speed is important, getting back to agents, you know, understanding their business and their needs because not every agent is the same, right? They're doing different freight, different parts of the country, different needs, those sorts of things.
You know, all of us in the industry, from brokers to agents, they've all faced various challenges recently. As the president of the company, including market fluctuations, pricing pressures from your shippers. How does B2B adapt to some of these challenges, and what strategies have really been successful for you guys in this kind of down market that we're selling into right now?
Yeah. So from an agent perspective, one of the things that I always talk about with them is having a diverse book of business because we've seen
Yeah.
through this downturn where we've had agents that were they're great people and they're still great agents, but they lose a lot of business because of that
Yeah.
pricing pressure that you mentioned, where they were killing it during COVID because maybe they're doing a food product and we were all
Yep.
home, or they were doing building products and we all rebuilt a gazebo or remodeled our kitchen or whatever it was because we had all this time and we had
Yep.
excess money the government was giving us. Well, now those people their agencies have shrunk because
Mm.
those people aren't as busy.
Yeah.
So if you're building a book of business, diversify. Um, and it doesn't mean you have to be in different industries or different commodities, just from a customer perspective.
Yeah.
Don't have all your eggs in one basket. Even 80, 90% is way too much.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
as an agent, it's harder, but as an asset-based carrier, we never had a customer. Well, I shouldn't say never. We built it to where when I started, we had our two customers that were 25%.
Yeah.
And we built that and diversified where no customer was larger than 10%. And then our top 10 customers were like 30%.
Yeah.
Those are big customers, but
Huge.
we're not putting all our eggs in one basket because the moment that you are leveraged, from your customer, that's a problem. You want to have an equitable relationship where you're partners and neither person is taking advantage of the other. So that's always my advice on how to market or how to strategize in any market. But it
Yeah.
really rears its head in a market like today. It just does. Um, So you have to remind me of the other questions that you talked about. How do we navigate or kind of what we're doing, I think you said.
Yeah, like what strategy has been successful for you guys? Like how do you find some of those opportunities to continue to grow, right? Like it's a tough market now, so how do you continuously find some of those new opportunities while, you've got 100 different brokers saying, "Hey, I can move your freight for cheaper."
Yeah. One of the things that probably about a year ago this time, I was kind of frustrated because we weren't growing, and
Yeah.
it just felt like every day you're just getting kicked in the teeth for whatever reason because of market pressure or pricing pressure, whatever it was. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way. And I mentioned I've got kids, they're 17 and 19. Um, they're not like putting stuff out on social media, but they're always like, oh, where'd you learn about that? Oh, TikTok. Or where'd you
Yep.
learn about that? Oh, I saw it on YouTube. And I'm just like, not that it's an epiphany for most people, but for me, I was like, okay, looking at our demographic of
Yeah.
our agents, I'm 46, they're older than me, most of them, and they're going to age out. So where's everybody, right? They're on
Yeah.
social media. They're I'm on my phone right now. You may be on your phone.
I'm on my
Um,
phone.
so we always have our phone in our hand. I'm like, we need to meet people where they are. And that's one of the things I've always said is like, if you don't meet people where they are, you're going to just beat your head against the wall. Um, so
Yeah.
about a year ago, I found Chad Atkinson. He's our director of recruiting. He didn't start until April, but what I started at that time is like, okay, we're going to change the way we're doing business. We're going to start being proactive and just pumping out a bunch of content.
Mm.
Um, it took a while to get that going, but March 5th is
Yeah.
when we launched our YouTube channel. I always look back at like, okay, March 5th. So almost 7 months now. And we still kind of bumped along, but we started to see some positive things. Chad came on, we were marketing on LinkedIn, doing some paid ads there, getting a lot more traction, a lot more people. They weren't
Yeah.
necessarily the ones we wanted because they were brand new, they didn't have a book, they needed a salary, all those things. Um, and we have employees, but we can't hire every person that comes through the door or that wants, to make that transition.
Come on,
Especially
Cale.
we're
Come on, man. Growth mode, baby. Hire
yeah,
everybody.
I know if I was VC or private equity or I could, uh,
Yep.
but I like sustained growth too. I don't know that I would really
100%.
like that
No.
that
Grow at all
model.
cost. Yeah.
Yeah. It just doesn't because I feel like in some ways it's you're you're putting profits over people,
100%.
and
Yeah.
profit is I'm very tied to profit, but I don't want to do it over attracting the right people.
Yeah.
Um, so we started really pumping out content and had a local agency that was helping us, and I got down the rabbit hole of YouTube. I mean, it's just like an endless rabbit hole.
It's addicting,
Uh,
man.
yeah, it's crazy. So watching a bunch of videos on how to grow, those sorts of things. Um, and the videos we were doing with the agency were great, but they were too short. They were 30-second, 45-second clips. I think we did 1, 2.5 minute. And I'm like, if we want to grow this, we need, watch hours is super important on YouTube to grow. If you want to like get to that level where
To be
it starts
serious. Yeah.
and they start recommending your content and people are following you. Uh, so I would say I actually have a graph like, it's like you got these little bar graphs and then all of a sudden it shoots up. So like September, our watch hours just went through the roof because I just started, I did some advertising on it too. So some of that is paid. Um, but we started putting out longer form, just me shooting it on my iPhone. So to answer the question is really just putting ourselves out there of who we are, and through that process, that has attracted a lot of people that are reaching out because they're on YouTube or they're on LinkedIn and they're saying, hey, I love what you're doing. Keep it up. I mean, we just had a guy this morning actually at 8 o'clock. We had an interview with a potential agent. He'll be a good get if we get him because he was in the industry, had a book about 3.5 million, spent some time out of it, but is looking to get back in.
Yeah.
He scoured LinkedIn, reached out to 5 or 6 different companies, plus the company he used to work at. Um, and he actually logged on to our show this morning with the baby broker. And shortly after, sent me a message, hey, I love what you guys are doing. It's exactly what I would do. He's probably about my age. Um, so it just
Love it.
shows putting ourselves out there is huge because now we're finding those people in those spots.
Yeah.
And there's probably a dozen stories like that, but that one's just the most recent one.
I love that, man. You've really identified, YouTube is kind of that like underserved space for freight brokers, for freight agents, for people in the freight space in general, right? There's some really good YouTubers who are out there who are doing good things. Dennis Brown is one of them.
Hmm.
But there's not a lot of them, right? Like there's, if you look at other niches and other industries, you can find 30 to 50 other content creators that create really high level good content that have hundreds of thousands of views. But if you're trying to look for freight content, it's really a very few number of people, and there seems to be a lot more you can find a lot of kind of the passive income kind of scam people on YouTube. You can find a lot of really good trucking YouTubers, but you
Yep.
don't see as many of the freight broker YouTube content creator. So with you guys diving more into that, like what role do you think that's going to play kind of in the future for you guys, talking about kind of going out and finding the people and reaching out to them where they are? Where do you think that that's going to play both in the future of finding good talent, but also attracting shippers as well, right? Shippers are online
Hmm.
just as much as anyone else. So when they're seeing, hey, Cale is putting out really good content for B2B. I really like, all the effort they're putting in. They could, that goes to show them a lot, right? You're not just saying, hey, we're all about rates, we're all about this. It shows, hey, they're really about training. They're really about standing up for the things and their morals and things that they talk about. So where do you kind of think that content plays a role in your overall big picture strategy for the next, 5 to 10 years?
I think it's going to be the catalyst for growth. I really
Mm,
do
yeah,
because, um, we kind of mentioned it, but everybody's on their phone
yeah,
and you hit on it. There's not a lot of people in the freight brokerage space on YouTube. Um, especially as a freight brokerage. And I always have a hard time talking about myself because I don't have a big ego, but I think it's
yeah,
important with my role in the company that I'm the face of that because, they're going to get to know me. They're going to get to know, hopefully they like me and they trust me through that process. That's really what it's about. And you see that happening with calls. People already feel like they know us when
yeah.
they reach out. And that we know how hard it is to build a relationship with potential shippers and potential agents. And if they come to that relationship feeling like they already know us and they trust us and they like us, we're already winning
Yeah.
because now we're not selling them. We're just continuing that conversation of this is who we are. And they're like, yeah, I like this. So I think it's going to be huge. I mean, we just launched the baby broker thing this morning.
Yep.
Shout out to Joey on that. Super nervous. Soon as I
Shout
asked,
out Joey, man.
yeah, as soon as we went live, man, I could just see like the color drain from his face. Uh, but that's what it's about too, is that training process of putting them just a little bit on the heat, a little bit of heat on them to get to know what that feels like. Um,
Absolutely. You got to be a little uncomfortable, right? You have to be okay with feeling uncomfortable because this industry it throws you a lot of curveballs and makes you feel uncomfortable a lot.
hmm and I have found one of the best ways if you're uncomfortable, it's because you don't feel like you have knowledge. Rather than
Yeah,
clam up, ask questions. You know, I
absolutely.
I I have a we have an agent that's out of the office this week, and he's like, he's had some other people cover for him, but we're in a position where we could cover for him. And so is Steve, our director of ops, and me, because I like to know how to use the system still and put
Yeah,
in loads and dispatch a load and all those things. Because if I lose touch of that, I'm not walking the walk that I'm talking about. Uh,
absolutely.
so, one of the things I was uncomfortable. I was like, this is weird. I haven't moved freight in a while. Like actually booked it with the customer, negotiated the rate, but it quickly came back to me. I'm like, this is fun. I'm having fun with this. But one of the things I had to do was like, they ship a lot of partials and they ship some truckload stuff and the words she's using. And I'm like, okay, let me ask you a couple of questions because I'm like, this is what this word means to me. Is
Yeah,
this what it means to you?
yeah,
It's like, because she's saying tandem. I'm like, okay, is that a full truckload? You want a tandem axle?
Yep.
FTL, so it's like, so I just asked her and she's like, yeah, it's just a full truckload. Okay, cool. Here's your quote, booked the
Yep.
load, moved it, etc. But just kind of getting in that spot to be uncomfortable and reminding ourselves that we all need to continuously learn in this business. We just have to.
Absolutely. And I want to touch on this because I think it was interesting. You touched on this a little bit with Joey on the Baby Broker show today. And it's kind of that initial maybe creating content, right? Creating digital content. So like maybe what advice would you give to those in the industry or people who are new like Joey who maybe want to start building their online presence, especially for particular like LinkedIn and YouTube? What advice would you have for building that online content originally or starting off?
Yeah. So specifically for those guys, what I've shared with them is like, hey, piggyback on the company's post, piggyback on my
Mm,
post, start commenting. That's less pressure. If
yeah.
somebody's following, because with LinkedIn, for example, people, like I sent those to a couple hundred people, like, hey, register for this, and they register. I said, if they register for it, connect with them.
Yep.
That's the first start. Just those simple things. I said, don't hit them with the sales pitch. Don't hit them with anything. Just merely connect, because in their situation, they're just trying to figure out how to walk in this
Yeah.
business. And like Joey mentioned, he put his first LinkedIn post out there today. Wearing Jordan shoes to the office. So I'm like, hey, drop a pic.
Oh yeah.
Um, so it's like, just the biggest thing is just start, and it's really hard with this. And I think we can all fall into this trap if we're not busy enough, and just head down with creating this. Don't get caught up with the views, don't get caught up with the connections, because if you're creating good content and giving value, people will start to like it and attract. But also, don't just make sure you're commenting, on people's posts. Make sure you're engaging, and
Yeah.
if you see something good, repost it and add a little
Mm,
value to that. I mean, it takes you 2 seconds, really, maybe five or
exactly.
10, but it's like, if somebody posts something that struck a chord with you, hopefully positive. That's the one thing I try to do, is like, I really try to keep it positive. There's enough negativity in the world.
For sure.
Um, I've always looked at the world as a glass half full, because that's the choice that I have every day. Because if I go down the rabbit hole of looking at everything with the glass half empty, that makes me miserable.
Yeah, it
Um,
does.
and it's just, you don't even realize it. But if you just come to every situation and find the good in it, you're going to be a happier person, and you can deal with stress. People always say, like, man, how do you deal with everything? It's like, I don't know. I just do it. It's just who
Yeah.
I am, and that's how I'm wired. Um, I do not like to sit around. So going back to the LinkedIn or YouTube, is just start, just do it. It's going to be garbage. It's okay. We all know that. You're just starting. I look at some of the stuff I did, and it's like, I had one that was really close to my face, and I'm like, it's bad lighting. And it's like, how did that get 2,000 views on a short?
Right.
I'm like, I don't know why, because it was the content was good.
Content.
And so,
That's all it is.
so, right. So that's what's important, is like, I was talking about agents and how we're different, and FAQs with them. And it struck a chord, and people watched it on a loop.
Yep.
But so it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, before
No.
this, I was trying to get my lighting fit, and that adds value,
Yeah.
but it's not everything, right? So just start, just do it. Look like an idiot, and don't be afraid to look and fail.
Yeah, we've all been there. We've all looked like that idiot. We've all been there. We've all done it. We've all failed 100 times, and that's why our content looks good now. It's why our pitch to our shippers is more polished. It's why we sound good on the phones because we've done it, a million times. You just have to kind of get dirty and try and fail and do it. Diving into more about LinkedIn because it's LinkedIn is so relationship heavy and so is freight brokerage. Can you maybe share an example of like where maybe a strong relationship from whether that's, online that you've developed from YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, from a shipper or a carrier that kind of made the difference for you, whether that's for your business or just, some advice you may have been given from one of those people or just a good networking piece of advice for everyone that's maybe listening.
I think one of the biggest things is being open, like
Yeah.
of getting a perfect example. Yesterday I posted a video, and we know Sean Matthews. he
Yep.
he DM'd me. He's like, hey, he goes, I'm not doing this, but this is what I've been told. Because I had posted the YouTube as a link straight from YouTube. He goes, just post it as a video. So I can't. So I deleted the post. I reposted it, and just being open to, like, other people are going to give you tips, and if they do, find value in that, because
Yeah.
that's huge.
For sure.
And that actually, it was a big difference, because when you just do a link, people got to click on it. It's got to open up. We're kind of lazy still, in this day and
Hey,
age.
but
So it's like,
listen, it's also can kind of be, and to touch on a little bit of like the fraud aspect of our industry. We can also, as freight people, kind of be a little weary to click on a link now,
yeah,
because it could be, oh, maybe this could be taking me to a fake truck stop link, or a fake this or a fake that. Obviously YouTube and things like that are different, but obviously, we as freight brokers tend to, be a little bit more skeptical of links now to click on them. Sorry for that tangent, but yeah, I
yeah,
agree. Like, it's those kind of relationships are invaluable, and when you can take that advice and not be like, upset that, okay, someone's trying to tell me how to do things, or trying to get me to do things. No, it's just like, hey, I'm trying to share a piece of advice with you that, like, has helped me, or has, been a little bit more effective for me to get the message out there. Because like you said, like, like, still, people are lazy. They don't want to go through that extra step of, okay, I'm looking at this, I have to click the link, it's going to take me to a page, I'm going to click that again, and it's going to pull up YouTube. It's 15 or 20 seconds that they are not watching the video, where they could be
yeah.
watching the video.
Exactly. Another thing on LinkedIn is it is great for immediate feedback. If you don't be
Yeah.
afraid to have a question, put it out there. I've done that a handful of times, and those are usually my biggest posts from an impressions and a comments,
Yeah.
because I had one. What was it? I forget. People started fighting in my comments, and I was looking for it. LinkedIn doesn't really allow you to do the memes as much, but I was
Right.
looking for, and I think you posted popcorn before. It's like, I wanted that guy eating the popcorn, like on Saturday Night Live or whatever it is,
Yep.
because I'm just sitting back. I'm like, let's go, you
Right.
know.
It's
Um,
all in good engagement.
yeah, so ask a question, because one of the things I did with Broker Dude is we had this logo, and I put out a logo called Broker Chick, and it was actually, I thought it was cool. I thought it was very divisive. People either loved it or felt it was demeaning to women, and that's the last
Yeah,
thing I wanted to do, was to be
for
demeaning.
sure.
But some people were like, that just puts women in a bad spotlight as a broker chick versus a trucker dude or a broker dude. I was like, okay, I can respect that. So put it out there, and I shelved it, and that was
Yeah.
within like 12 hours. I said, okay, that was the wrong path. But had I not done that, I probably would have put it on the website and wondered why people didn't buy it,
Yeah.
and never would have found that out. So it's a great tool for something like that, to create engagement, but really give you good feedback. So don't be afraid to blow up your DMs as well. If you have a question about a product or whatever, I've done that several times, where it's like I put a question out there and I know it's going to blow me up, but I get 10 ideas I never would have had.
Yeah.
So it's worth it.
I want to dive into kind of the technology aspect of kind of the industry, because we are so, focusing on kind of that tech aspect. For the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of, tech heavy tech pushes, you know, as, the leader of the company. How does it, how do you find balancing adopting new technology with maintaining, your agents, relationship driven aspects of the brokerage, as well as, implementing that with some of your other staff, some of the employee staff that you guys have as well?
That's probably one of the hardest things right now, is because there's so much tech out there,
Yeah.
and there's so much AI coming.
Mm,
And it's like, okay, what's a good fit for us? Because some of the challenges we have is, it's really much easier. I was going to say easy, but it's not easy. Much easier for me to go with our team internally and say, hey, this is the way we're going to go. This is why we're going to do this, and educate them on that process. Whereas agents,
yeah.
they're independent for a
Mm,
reason. So it's like I can have a great idea, but they don't may not care or may not work for their business and they don't want to do it. And so we're okay with that as an organization. So if you're a freight agent and you feel like you're being forced to do things, we don't do that because it's an independent freight agent program for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, they're running their own business, so it is hard when you're looking at TAC. You make it available for agents because you can't just make it available for part of you, and they either use it or they don't. So you have to be really careful. Like I get the sales pitch, oh, you have 35 agencies and we can make each one move 3 more loads a day, and it's like, no, you can't. I promise you can't, because if I can't make them do it, and I'm not going to make them do it, it's not your thing is it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Um, so it's listening to agents, trying to be proactive with what they need and want. I mean, the bottom line, most agents, they want you to get out of their way and let them do their job. The good
Yeah.
ones do. It's like your system needs to be up and running consistently, because if you don't, if you have interruptions of service, you're going to hear about it.
Oh yeah.
Um, you need to set up my carriers really fast, which is getting harder right now. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really getting hard when you have this much fraud. And we had an example last week. Agents like, it's been an hour and a half, and I'm like, and it's going to take long when you send me an agent or a carrier with I'm probably going to forget exactly what it was, defined auto or listed auto schedule. I said, because
Mm.
if they have a policy where the VIN number is on the policy and it doesn't match that truck and you have
Yep.
a claim, guess what? We're SOL and our insurance isn't going to kick in. So if you source those kind of carriers, it is going to take us longer. We're protecting you as much as we are. So education on that piece is huge. So going back to the agent is, they want things fast, they want service, and then they don't want you to tell them how to do things. Um, so it's a fine line when I
Yeah.
need something from them, so more, it's like I'm coming to them more as a peer of like, hey, help me understand this.
Yep.
How does this affect your business if we were to go down this path?
Mm.
Because I don't want to negatively affect your business, but here's how I see it and how I think it can help our organization. But every agent's different based
Yeah.
on the freight, maybe geographical reasons, just all kinds of things. So there's just going to them as a peer versus I'm the leader of the organization. You're going to do this because I said so. You
I like
know,
that.
so managing it is tough with the tech because there are a lot of tools out there. One of the ones I looked at recently was the um, you know AI for the phone system.
Oh yeah.
Um, I mean, that stuff is slick. We're not going to do it yet because agents couldn't use it.
Yeah.
And the cost of doing it for this amount of people we have doesn't make a lot of sense right now. I really like the tech and I think there's a place for it and we may do it in the future, but we need to do some things internally before we're ready. So that's another thing with tech is you just can't bolt on tech and think it's going to solve your problems if you're not a well-run organization. It's going to make it
Mm.
worse is what it's
Yeah.
going to do, because people are going to be frustrated. You're going to be engaged with this contract that if you don't have an opt-out clause, now you're just burning cash in a market that you shouldn't be burning cash.
Oh yeah.
Um, and everybody's pissed at you, the vendor included.
How do you see, technology continuing to evolve? You mentioned the AI for your phones. Are there any, specific tools or trends that you think are like true game changers for brokers and for agents?
Um, Depends on your size of organization. The phone calls for a large employee organization is huge.
Yeah.
Because they're using it for check calls, they're using it for carrier negotiations, they're vetting out. If you just think about, let's say you have 50 employees and in the amount of phone calls that you have, if you can narrow that down to only take the calls that you might give that carrier load, how many calls are you just eliminating from those people? And now they can book more freight. So those pieces are huge in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's where if we can build our staff internally to do that, that's where I'll take advantage of that tech. Uh, because the way that I see that tech is like if you call and you get, okay, what's your MC? What load are you calling on? you give me the MC. That AI is going to check to see if it's set up in our system, if we can do business. That's one of the steps. And then can we negotiate the load? And if we're close enough, it'll transfer that to a live person to finish the booking. And the AI does not budge on negotiation. You give it,
Yeah.
if it's $700 is the rate, $700 is the rate. You can't convince the AI otherwise. So from
Exactly.
that standpoint, you're going to pick up a little bit of margin dollars. Plus, you're going to free up your people to book more freight because now they're not dealing with all those phone calls that are needless or the double brokers or the scammers. Because if you called and you had a MC that we identified was fraudulent, the AI would say, "I'm sorry, we cannot do business with you. Goodbye," something like that.
Yeah.
Now I just freed up my team to not have to do that. So I don't know if that's ever going to be good enough for customers. That's really a slippery slope. Now, if we were back into a COVID environment, and that's where you saw those digital brokers really, blow up because
Right.
they had the systems to just go out and ping all those portals and put rates in, and digitally book all that freight. Well, now that was all spot market. So I could see that AI maybe in a customer facing environment work if the market was crazy. But
Yeah.
my warning would be if you do that, you better be ready for when it comes down because you're going to lose the majority
Mm.
of that business. So
Yeah.
you're going to ride that wave like crazy, or you're going to figure out how to ride the wave, develop relationships, keep the business as much as possible. But most people, let's just be honest, most people don't think past one or two steps. So
No, I
that's
love
good.
it, man. I think you're spot on with that. I think that while the like you said, I think the tech is really good. And I think especially good on the carrier side. I'm not sure how well it can be really adopted, especially when these market changes happen, these downswings happen on the shipper side. I just, we're seeing the inevitable happen with a lot of these digital brokers. A lot of them are closing, a lot of them are downsizing, they're furloughing employees. So,
Hmm.
it's an interesting time, and yeah, I think AI is going to be an interesting play over the next 5 to 10 years in our space. Cale, looking ahead as we, kind of wrap up as we come up on time, what excites you the most about both the future of the logistics and freight space, but also for B2B transportation, and what you guys are doing for the next couple of years?
The freight space is always going to be here. There's a need
Yeah.
for it. So that to me is awesome because it's not going to go away. You just have to adapt to what changes are going to happen within the space. And that's part of what I love about it too, is it is always changing. It's always a different environment.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's maddening because you're like, I just want to have the same load every single day or the same carrier and not have to deal with all that. But, that's not the world we live in.
Yeah.
As far as where we're at, I really feel like what we're doing, I have some stuff, that we're doing with the baby broker, the boss broker. Um, I think that's really going to create a lot of engagement. I just
Yeah.
looked before we jumped. I mean, and this was the first episode. We had 50 something people on YouTube Live. We had 30 something on LinkedIn. So that was really good
That's
engagement for our
awesome.
first episode. Um, and that's only going to grow as long as it's good content. If it's bad
Yep.
content, it'll shrink. And the great thing is we'll know that and
You'll
we'll have to
know. Yeah.
adjust. So you have to dive into those analytics, and see. Um, so with that, I'm really excited because we're going to create some other things as an offshoot where, because the new agents, the new people in this industry are underserved.
Yeah.
Um, there's some training programs out there, but kind of the next step, and I don't know our timing on this, is creating the same kind of idea, but for um, people that don't work for us. Whether
Mm.
it's a once a month, I haven't fully figured it out. If it's a live or just a webinar style, but hey, come and let's meet once a month or every 2 weeks, whatever it is, and just start with some freight agent or freight broker basics, because that's going to really drive our growth too. Because it goes back to the three things: being known, being liked, and being trusted. And if we're creating that through our content, that is huge when they come to us.
Yeah.
We'll probably get into the space of developing some trainings as well. That's down the road, with my training background. I think that's, it's really a 3-step process. They come to us as new people, no experience. They go to the webinars or whatever we call them. Then, hey, we have this training program as well. Okay, that's great. They already know us, like us, trust us. Yeah, the value that we've given them exceeds what they paid, which was free. But the value was there for them to say, okay, I'll pay the whatever it is. Have no idea what it's going to cost because I'm not there yet. And then the next level is, hey, they did the training. That's layer 2 of them knowing, liking, and trusting us. Oh, by the way, we're a freight agency. They already know that. But it's a natural evolution to grow our own freight agents and grow them, and just continue this process of building a ton of content. I want to be one of the top freight brokers on YouTube, because if we're invested in that space, it's the number 2 search engine out there, and the number 1 is Google, which owns YouTube. So where are they going to drive you to if you're searching videos? YouTube. So I really want to be one of those top voices, and I don't have a timeline on that because I don't know how fast that's going to happen. But I'm excited with the numbers I've already seen with a couple lives we've done, with the watch hours on that really create engagement. But really, it's not just the watch hours; it's the growth that comes with that. And one of the things I think that for me is a misnomer is competition. And I forget where I heard this, but success is infinite. You can be successful and I can be successful in the same space, and we can cheer each other on. I don't have to push you down. I don't have to talk about you badly. I don't have to disparage you in order for me to have success. So if we come with that mindset of success is infinite, we can all find success in this business. And that's really what I'm trying to do with our team and the content is like, hey, if you come consume our content and you never work with us, great. You know what? Hopefully we made the industry better, and hopefully we made you a better person, because ultimately this business is still about relationships and doing business with people. I've seen it time and again where we get away from that and we try to go to the tech too much, whether it's the customer, and we lose those relationships. So when bad things happen or challenging things happen in this industry, if we don't have that relationship, we might lose that customer or that carrier, because we're only coming with our opinion or our side of the story and not being a true partner in that relationship. So that's kind of a long-winded answer, but really just diving into the content. And I think that's going to help us really, really grow, because we're already seeing that with the agents that we've added and the engagement level from those people. So we're super excited about that. And I think it's really going to pour the coals to what we're doing in the next couple of years.
Cale, I really appreciate you coming back on the show, man. I appreciate your time. You're always, doing something, creating content. So I appreciate you coming on, taking time for our listeners again. If they want to get in touch, if they want to, find some of your content, whether that be on YouTube, that be on LinkedIn, how can they find what you guys are working on?
So YouTube is B2B Transportation Services, just our name, super simple. LinkedIn is me. We have a company page as well, but one of the things we find is that they engage more with the individuals than the company pages. And then of course our website is b2btransserve.com. So you could just, any of those methods work. I manage all those accounts, so you could even go to Instagram or TikTok and DM me and it'd be me. So lots of places. So just wherever your fancy is, that's where we're at.
Make sure you guys check out Cale and B2B. I'll have all of their links in the comments. They're doing a lot of really good freight broker and agent trainings. Check out their Baby Broker series on LinkedIn, YouTube or LinkedIn, really good. I was watching that earlier today. If you guys like today's podcast, make sure you give it a like and review. It does help us out a ton. And don't forget, we do drop 3 weekly newsletters at thinkfreight.io. We'll catch you guys in the next episode. And don't forget to think freight.